She didn't lower her voice when she handed him the divorce papers. Not in the middle of the mall, not with strangers slowing down to watch. "You're a nobody, Ethan," Vanessa said, sharp and clear. "I deserve a real man, not a janitor pretending he has a life." He stood there in a gray maintenance uniform, a mop still in his hand, the folder pressed against his chest. A few people laughed. Someone raised a phone. What none of them knew, what his wife had never cared to learn, was that every store around them, every polished tile under her heels, every paycheck she bragged about, traced back to him, and he didn't stop her. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 weeks earlier, nothing about their marriage had looked broken from the outside. Ethan Hale moved quietly through the same mall every morning, before opening hours, pushing a cart of supplies across marble floors that reflected the early light from the skylights above. He wore the same uniform every day, gray shirt, black work pants, his name stitched crooked over his chest like it didn't quite belong there. Most people didn't look at him twice. That had been the point. 7 years earlier, when he married Vanessa Carter, he had made a decision he never explained out loud. He wanted a life that didn't come with introductions, expectations, or quiet calculations about what his name was worth. He wanted to know if someone could choose him without knowing what came behind him. Vanessa had been ambitious even then. That was what he admired first. She worked long hours in retail, pushing herself up through management roles, learning how to sell not just products but status. She knew how to read people, how to make them feel seen, important. At least she had back then. Over the years, something in her shifted. As she climbed, her world narrowed. Everything became a measure. Titles, salaries, connections, the right table at the right restaurant, the right people noticing her, and somewhere along the way, Ethan stopped fitting into that picture. He noticed it in small moments first, the way she introduced him differently depending on who was listening. "Ethan works in maintenance," she would say, quick and casual, like it didn't matter. Then, later, it became "he keeps things running at the mall." Eventually, she stopped introducing him at all. He never corrected her. Not once. Because correcting her would mean explaining. And explaining would mean ending the one thing he had been trying to protect since the beginning. There were signs, though, signs she chose not to see, like the way certain people in the building treated him. The older security supervisor who always straightened when Ethan passed. The leasing coordinator who lowered her voice and nodded with quiet respect. The occasional suited executive who paused mid-conversation just long enough to say, "Morning, mister," before catching himself and shifting tone. Vanessa noticed none of it, or maybe she did and decided it didn't matter. One morning, as Ethan wiped down a section near the central atrium, his phone vibrated, once in his pocket. A short buzz. Nothing loud, nothing that would draw attention. He stepped aside, pulling it out briefly. An email preview sat at the top, board review rescheduled. Awaiting final approval. No sender name, just an internal address most people would never recognize. He didn't open it, not there, not with footsteps already approaching behind him. Ethan. Vanessa's voice cut through the quiet like it belonged to a different world entirely. He turned. She stood there in a tailored blazer, heels sharp against the marble, her posture straight in a way that demanded space. She looked like she belonged to the building, like she owned every reflection around her, and she looked at him like he didn't belong at all. "You're still down here?" she asked, glancing at the cart beside him. "I thought you'd at least try to do something better by now." He held her gaze for a second. Calm, steady. "I'm working," he said. She let out a short breath, something between a laugh and disappointment. "That's not what I meant." Of course it wasn't. A group of her colleagues passed behind her, slowing just enough to listen without being obvious. Ethan could feel it, the shift in the air, the subtle attention. Vanessa noticed that too. Her tone changed. Louder, sharper. "You've been here for years, Ethan. Same job, same uniform. Don't you ever want more?" He could have answered that question a dozen different ways. He could have told her about the meetings that happened 40 floors above them, about decisions that shaped the very leases she negotiated. about numbers that moved quietly across accounts she had never heard of. Instead, he said nothing, because the truth wasn't something you threw into a moment like that. Not when it would sound like a defense. Not when it would turn into exactly what he had spent years avoiding. Vanessa shook her head, turning slightly as if to include the people behind her in the conversation. I just don't understand how someone can be so comfortable with so little. There it was. Not anger, not even frustration, dismissal. Ethan set the cloth down on the cart, careful, deliberate. Maybe it depends on what you think little means, he said. She didn't respond. Not directly, her eyes flicked to his uniform again. Then back to his face, measuring, deciding. Behind her, one of her colleagues gave a small, awkward smile. Another looked away, suddenly interested in a store display. Vanessa exhaled, as if the conversation had already wasted more of her time than it deserved. We'll talk later, she said, at home. But her tone didn't sound like a conversation. It sounded like a decision. She turned and walked away, heels echoing across the floor, her reflection stretching and breaking across the polished marble with every step. Ethan stood there for a moment after she left, the noise of the mall slowly returning around him, picked up his phone again. This time, he opened the email. A short message, clean, direct. All board members confirmed. Final vote pending your authorization. He stared at it for a second longer than necessary. Then he locked the screen and slid the phone back into his pocket. Across the atrium, Vanessa stopped near a group of sharply dressed men. One of them stepped closer to her. Confident, familiar, too comfortable. Ethan watched just long enough to notice the way she leaned in when he spoke. Not far, just enough. Enough to say something had already shifted. He didn't move toward her, didn't call her name. He turned back to his cart instead, pressing the mop into the bucket with a steady hand. The water rippled once, then stilled. Somewhere above them, behind glass walls and closed doors, a decision waited for his name. And across the floor, the woman who had never asked who he really was already starting to choose someone else. Ethan didn't look at her again after she walked away. He went back to work. That was what surprised people the most about him, though most of them never noticed it clearly enough to name it. He didn't react the way men usually did when they were disrespected. No raised voice, no argument, no attempt to win the moment. He just kept moving. By mid-morning, the mall was alive. Doors open, music low through the speakers. Shoppers drifting in waves, slow at first, then steady. The kind of rhythm that made everything feel normal, even when something wasn't. Ethan pushed his cart along the second-level corridor, stopping near a glass railing that overlooked the atrium. From here, he could see most of the main floor. The luxury storefronts Vanessa managed were directly below. He didn't need to search for her. She stood near the entrance of a high-end boutique, posture perfect, speaking with a man Ethan had never seen before. Mid-40s, sharp suit, expensive watch, the kind of confidence that came from always being the one with leverage in a room. Marcus Reed. Ethan didn't know his name yet, but he understood the type immediately. The man leaned in slightly when he spoke. Vanessa tilted her head, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at Ethan in a long time. Not soft, calculated. Ethan watched just long enough to notice the pattern. The way Marcus's hand hovered too close to her elbow, the way Vanessa didn't step back. He looked away first. There was no benefit in staring. A few feet behind him, someone cleared their throat. Mourning, Ethan turned. It was Daniel Cruz, one of the assistant property managers. Late 30s, always polite, always careful. Too careful, sometimes. Morning, Ethan said. Daniel glanced around before stepping closer, lowering his voice just enough to avoid being overheard. There's a meeting scheduled this afternoon, he said, executive review. They moved it up. Ethan didn't react outwardly. They do that, he said. Daniel hesitated, like he wanted to say more, then he didn't. They're waiting on final authorization, he added quietly. Ethan nodded once. I saw. Daniel straightened, the professional mask slipping back into place. Of course, he said, then stepped away, disappearing into the flow of people like nothing had happened. Ethan stood there for a moment longer below. Vanessa laughed at something Marcus said. Her hand brushed his sleeve this time. Not an accident. Ethan turned and kept walking. He finished his shift without interruption. Same tasks, same routine. Same quiet presence no one thought twice about. By the time he got home, the sun had already dipped low enough to cast long shadows across the apartment windows. The place wasn't small, but it wasn't impressive either. A rental in a decent part of the city. Clean, functional, exactly the kind of place Vanessa had once called temporary. She was already there, standing in the kitchen, heels still on, phone in her hand. "You're late," she said without looking up. "I finished my shift," Ethan replied, setting his keys down. She scoffed softly. "Your shift." He didn't answer. There was a pause, not long, just enough for the tension to settle between them like something familiar. Vanessa turned then, crossing her arms. "I ran into Marcus today," she said. Ethan met her gaze. "I saw." That surprised her. A flicker. Quick, gone almost immediately. "Well," she said, recovering, "he's everything you're not." The words landed clean, precise. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. Ethan didn't move. Vanessa took a step closer, studying his face like she was trying to provoke something. "Anything," she continued. "Connected. He understands how things work. He's building something real." Ethan held her gaze. "And I'm not?" he asked. She let out a short breath. "You're not." Silence stretched between them. He could have ended it there, walked away, shut it down, said something that would force the truth into the open, but he didn't. Because this wasn't new. This was just the first time she'd said it without softening it. Vanessa turned back toward the counter, picking up her phone again. "I have dinner plans tonight," she said. "Don't wait up." Ethan nodded once. "Okay." That was it. No argument. No questions. That irritated her more than anything else. She looked back at him sharply. "That's all you're going to say?" "What do you want me to say?" he asked, calm. She opened her mouth, closed it, then shook her head. "This is exactly the problem," she said. "You don't even fight for anything." Ethan didn't respond because she was wrong. He just didn't fight the way she understood. Vanessa grabbed her bag and headed for the door, her movements quick now, frustrated. She paused just before leaving, glancing back at him one last time. "I can't keep living like this," she said. "I need more." Then she left. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. Ethan stood there in the silence that followed. Not empty. Just clear. He walked to the kitchen counter and picked up his phone. The same email still sat at the top. Board review rescheduled. Awaiting final approval. He opened it fully this time. Attached documents. Financial summaries. Lease restructuring proposals. Vendor contract audits. And one flagged note near the bottom. Irregular activity detected in third-party vendor accounts. Requires executive oversight. Ethan's thumb hovered over the screen. He tapped the attachment. A list of names appeared. Companies, shell entities, payment trails, and one name repeated across multiple entries, Marcus Reed. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something in his posture did. Subtle, settled. He scrolled slowly, reading every line, every transaction, every quiet movement of money that shouldn't have moved the way it did. This wasn't just about Vanessa anymore. This was bigger. He locked the phone, setting it down carefully on the counter. Then he reached for his jacket, pulling it on with deliberate ease. For the first time that day, he made a decision that wasn't about waiting. He picked up his phone again and dialed a number he hadn't used in weeks. It rang once, twice. Then a woman's voice answered, steady and composed, Claire Donovan. Ethan glanced toward the door Vanessa had just walked through, then back at the documents on the counter. "We need to talk," he said. There was a pause on the other end. Not surprise. Recognition. "I was wondering when you'd say that," Claire replied. Ethan's eyes dropped once more to Marcus Reed's name on the screen, and for the first time, he didn't look away. Claire didn't ask him to come to the office. She asked him to meet somewhere quieter. Ethan arrived 10 minutes early, as he always did, choosing a small, dimly lit bar tucked between two office buildings a few blocks from the mall. It wasn't the kind of place executives usually picked for meetings. No polished glass walls, no assistants hovering nearby, just low light, a few scattered tables, and the kind of privacy that didn't raise questions. Claire Donovan walked in exactly on time. Charcoal coat, clean lines, no hesitation in her stride. She spotted him immediately, like she always did, even when he blended into the background. "Ethan," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Not Mr. Hale. Not here." He nodded once. Claire. She didn't order anything. Neither did he. There was no need for small talk. "I've reviewed the files," she said, placing a thin tablet on the table between them. "The irregularities are worse than we thought." Ethan leaned back slightly, his expression unchanged. "How much?" Claire held his gaze. "Just under 6 figures confirmed," she said. "But that's only what we can trace cleanly. If we follow the shell accounts fully, it's likely more." Ethan didn't react outwardly, but he felt it settle. Not the number, the pattern. "Same name?" he asked. Claire tapped the screen, turning it toward him. Marcus Reed, repeated across multiple vendor approvals. Landscaping contracts, maintenance supplies, third-party staffing agreements, each one small enough to avoid attention on its own. Together, they told a different story. "He's been careful," Claire said, "layered entities, indirect approvals." But he made one mistake. Ethan glanced at her. "He got comfortable," she added. "That made sense. Men like Marcus always did." Ethan studied the transactions, scrolling slowly. Dates lined up with moments he recognized. Vendor changes, budget shifts, minor complaints that had seemed routine at the time. He hadn't ignored them. He'd watched. Claire leaned back, crossing her arms. "There's more," she said. "His access shouldn't be this deep. He's not supposed to have visibility into internal vendor channels." Ethan's thumb paused on the screen. "Who gave it to him?" Claire didn't answer right away. She didn't have to. Ethan already knew. Vanessa. Not intentionally. Not in a way she would understand. But access came from proximity, from trust, from conversations overheard, emails glanced at, systems left open. Marcus didn't need clearance. He needed someone close enough to the system. Ethan set the tablet down. "She doesn't know," Claire said quietly. Ethan looked up. "No," he replied. "She doesn't." Claire studied him for a moment. "She's still your wife." It wasn't a question. Ethan nodded once. "For now." Claire exhaled slowly. "You want me to move on this?" she asked. "We can freeze accounts, flag the contracts, initiate a formal audit. If this escalates, it becomes legal." Ethan didn't answer immediately, because once it moved, it wouldn't stop, and Vanessa would be caught in the middle, whether she understood why or not. He reached for the tablet again, scrolling back to Marcus's name. "How long?" he asked. Claire understood. "If we build it properly," she said, "a few weeks. Enough to document everything cleanly. Enough that he can't walk away from it." Ethan nodded. "And the board?" he asked. "They're waiting on you," Claire said. "The restructuring proposal, lease consolidation, vendor realignment. It all needs your sign-off before it goes live." He knew that. He'd written half of it himself months ago. He just hadn't executed. Not yet. Claire watched him carefully. "You've been holding back," she said. Ethan met her gaze. "Yes. Because of her?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Claire let out a quiet breath. "She's already moved on, Ethan," she said. "At least she thinks she has." He thought about that. About Vanessa standing in the mall earlier, leaning into Marcus like he was the future she had been waiting for. About the way she looked at Ethan now, like something already left behind. "I know," he said. Claire leaned forward slightly. "Then why are we still waiting?" Ethan didn't look at her right away. His eyes drifted to the window, where the city lights had started to come alive against the darkening sky. "Because once I move," he said quietly, "everything changes." Claire held his gaze. "That's the point." Ethan nodded. "Yes." But there was a difference between knowing that and choosing it. He reached for his phone, unlocking it, and pulling up the same email again. The board meeting. The pending vote. The authority that had been sitting in his hands for years without being used publicly. Vanessa had never asked what he did all day. Never asked why certain decisions in the mall seemed to align with things he mentioned casually at home. Never questioned how he always knew when something would change before it did. She didn't want to know, because knowing might have forced her to see him differently, and she had already decided who he was. Ethan locked the phone again. "Give me a week," he said. Claire's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. "Are you sure?" she asked. "He's already pushing boundaries. If we wait too long, he'll make another mistake," Ethan said. Claire studied him, then nodded slowly. "All right," she said. 1 week. She reached for the tablet, pulling it back toward her. "I'll keep tracking everything," she added, "and I'll prepare the legal team in case we need to move fast." Ethan stood. "So will I," he said. Claire looked up at him. "You're going to let this play out, aren't you?" Ethan didn't deny it. I'm going to let them show me exactly how far they're willing to go, he said. Claire held his gaze for a second longer. Then she gave a small nod. Then we'll be ready when they do. They left separately. No handshake. No formal goodbye. They didn't need one. By the time Ethan stepped back outside, the night had fully settled over the city. His phone buzzed in his hand. A message this time. Not from Claire. Not from the board. Vanessa. Running late. Dinner went longer than expected. He stared at the screen for a moment, then another message came in. This one not meant for him. A preview. A notification from a shared device setting she had forgotten to turn off months ago. Marcus. Can't wait to have you to myself without him around. Ethan didn't move, didn't react. He just stood there under the glow of a streetlight, reading the words once, then again. Not because he needed to understand them, but because now there was no room left for doubt. He locked the phone slowly, then slipped it back into his pocket. Across the street, a black sedan pulled up to the curb. Not for him. Just another car in the city. But Ethan watched it for a second anyway, because something in him had already shifted. 1 week, he had said, but standing there, with Marcus's name sitting in both his business records and his wife's messages, that timeline no longer felt necessary. He reached for his phone again. This time, he didn't hesitate. He dialed a different number. It rang once. Law offices of Grant and Ellison, a voice answered. Ethan's gaze lifted toward the skyline, toward the building that housed everything Vanessa believed she understood. This is Ethan Hale, he said, calm and precise. I need to begin formal separation proceedings. There was a brief pause on the other end. Then the tone shifted, professional, alert. Yes, Mr. Hale, the voice said. We've been expecting your call. Ethan ended the call without another word, and for the first time since Vanessa had started pulling away, he wasn't waiting anymore. Ethan didn't sleep much that night, not because of anger. That had already burned out into something quieter, more controlled. What kept him awake was clarity, the kind that didn't come often, but when it did, it stripped everything down to what actually mattered. Vanessa came home after midnight. He heard the door open, the soft click of her heels against the floor, the faint sound of her setting her bag down, careful but not quiet enough to suggest she cared whether he noticed. Ethan stayed in the living room, sitting on the couch, one hand resting loosely on his phone. She paused when she saw him. You're still up? She asked. Yeah, a beat passed. She studied him for a second longer than usual, like she was trying to read something that wasn't there. Then she walked past him toward the kitchen. You didn't have to wait, she said, her tone lighter now, almost rehearsed. I told you I'd be late. I wasn't waiting, he replied. That made her stop. She turned slowly, leaning back against the counter, arms crossing loosely. No? She said. Then what were you doing? Ethan didn't answer right away. He watched her instead. The way she held herself, the ease in her posture, the absence of guilt, that told him everything he needed. I was thinking, he said finally. About what? He could have told her. About Marcus. About the numbers that didn't add up. About the conversation he'd had with Claire. About the call he'd made to a law firm that had already prepared for this moment before he even spoke the words. But he didn't. About us, he said instead. Vanessa's expression shifted just slightly. Not soft. Not concerned. Just cautious. There's not much to think about, she said. I already told you how I feel once. You did. She pushed off the counter, stepping closer. Look, Ethan, she said, her voice lowering. I'm not trying to hurt you. I need more than this. Her hand moved, gesturing loosely around the apartment. This life, this routine. It's not enough for me. Ethan followed her gaze. The apartment, the furniture, the quiet. Everything she had once accepted without question. More what? He asked. Vanessa hesitated. Then she said it. More stability, more opportunity, more future. Ethan almost smiled at that. Almost. Because the future she was talking about was already built. She just wasn't standing in the part of it she wanted. And you think you've found that? He asked. She didn't answer immediately, but she didn't deny it either. That's not the point, she said. It was exactly the point. Ethan leaned back slightly, his expression calm. Then what is? He asked. Vanessa exhaled, her patience thinning. The point is I can't keep pretending this works, she said. It doesn't. There it was again. Final. Decided. Ethan nodded once. Okay, That word landed harder than anything else he could have said. Vanessa blinked. Okay, she repeated. Okay, he said again. She stared at him now, searching for something. An argument, a reaction, resistance, anything that would justify what she was doing. But there was nothing, and that unsettled her. You're just going to accept that? She asked. Ethan held her gaze. I'm not going to force something that's already gone, he said. The truth in that sat heavier than anger ever could. Vanessa looked away first. Good, she said, a little too quickly. Then we're on the same page. They weren't. But she needed to believe they were. She turned, reaching for a glass of water, her movements sharp now. I'll talk to a lawyer this week, she added. We can handle everything cleanly. Ethan nodded. I already have. That made her pause. Slowly, she turned back toward him. You what? I spoke to a lawyer, he repeated. Steady, Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly. When? Tonight. A flicker of something crossed her face. Not fear. Not yet. Just surprise. I didn't realize you were that serious, she said. Ethan didn't respond. Because this wasn't about seriousness. It was about timing. Vanessa studied him for another second, then gave a small, dismissive shrug. Fine, she said. That makes things easier. She took a sip of water, then set the glass down. We'll figure out the details, she continued. There's not much to divide anyway. Ethan almost laughed at that. Almost. But he didn't, because to her that was true. There wasn't much. At least, not that she could see. Whatever you think is fair, he said. Vanessa nodded, satisfied. I always am, she replied. The confidence in her voice was effortless, unquestioned, built on assumptions she had never tested. Ethan watched her for a moment longer, then he stood. I'm going to bed, he said. She didn't stop him. Didn't ask anything else, because as far as she was concerned, the conversation was over. Ethan walked down the hallway, the quiet stretching behind him. But before he reached the bedroom, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen. Claire Donovan. He stepped into the study instead, closing the door behind him before answering. Yes? Her voice came through immediately. There's been a development, she said. Ethan's posture shifted just slightly. What kind? A vendor escalation, Claire replied. Marcus pushed through a contract tonight. Large one. He shouldn't have had clearance for it. Ethan's eyes moved to the desk in front of him. Empty. Clean, controlled. How large? He asked. Large enough that it triggered a manual review, she said. And large enough that we can't ignore it anymore. Ethan exhaled slowly. The timeline had just changed. I thought you said we had a week, he said. So did I, Claire replied. He didn't get that memo. Silence settled between them for a second. Then Claire spoke again. There's something else, she added. Ethan waited. The contract approval counter was routed through Vanessa's credentials, she said. Not directly, but close enough that if this gets flagged externally. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Ethan understood. Vanessa wasn't just involved emotionally anymore. She was exposed, and she had no idea. Ethan's grip tightened slightly around the phone. Pull everything, he said, quietly. I want every transaction, every approval, every access log tied to that contract. We're already on it, Claire said. But Ethan, if we move forward with this, there's no way to keep her out of it. He knew that. That had always been the line, the one he hadn't crossed, until now. Ethan looked toward the closed door of the study. Beyond it, Vanessa moved through the apartment, unaware of how close everything was to collapsing, unaware of how much she had already stepped into something she couldn't control. Do it, he said. Claire didn't hesitate. Understood. The line went quiet. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. For a moment, he just stood there, staring at nothing. Then he walked to the desk, pulling out a drawer he hadn't opened in months. Inside, neatly organized, were documents Vanessa had never seen, account summaries, ownership structures, signatures that carried weight she had never questioned. Ethan rested his hand on them, not opening them, not yet. Because once he did, there was no going back. His phone buzzed again, a new message, unknown number. He opened it, a single line. Board meeting moved to tomorrow. Full attendance required. Final authorization needed in person. Ethan stared at the message. Then slowly, very slowly, he smiled. Not out of satisfaction, not out of victory, but because the moment he had been holding back was no longer waiting for him. It was here, and upstairs in the same apartment, the woman who thought she was leaving a nobody, was already standing inside a decision that only he could make. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the mall earlier than usual, before the lights fully came on, before the first employees unlocked their storefronts, before Vanessa stepped into the building and became the version of herself she preferred. He walked the same path he always did, past the glass doors, across the polished floors, through the quiet that only existed in the hour before everything started moving again. Nothing about his routine changed, but everything underneath it had. Claire was already waiting, not in the open, not in her office. She stood near a side corridor that led toward the management wing, her posture composed, tablet in hand. She didn't greet him with surprise. "Good," she said. "You came in early." Ethan stopped a few feet from her. "What do we have?" Claire turned the screen toward him. "The contract Marcus pushed through last night," she said. "We traced it fully." Ethan scanned the document. Vendor name. Third-party logistics. Inflated cost structure buried under legitimate line items. Clean enough to pass a surface check, not clean enough to survive scrutiny. "How deep?" he asked. Claire's expression tightened slightly. "Deeper than before," she said. "He's not just skimming anymore. He's restructuring supply chains." Ethan's eyes moved across the numbers. "That's not opportunistic," he said. "No," Claire agreed. "That's intentional." It meant Marcus wasn't testing the system anymore. He was using it. And the only reason he could move that confidently was because he believed no one above him was paying attention. Ethan handed the tablet back. "Pull every related contract," he said. "Not just his name, anyone tied to these entities." Claire nodded, already started. She hesitated for a moment. "Ethan, there's something else." He looked at her. She tapped the screen again, bringing up a different file. User access logs, timestamps, login credentials. Vanessa Carter. Ethan's jaw didn't tighten. His expression didn't shift. But the silence stretched just long enough to matter. "She didn't authorize it directly," Claire said carefully. "But her credentials were used to route approvals. Repeatedly." Ethan looked at the timestamps. Late nights, early mornings. Moments when Vanessa had told him she was working. He nodded once. "I understand." Claire studied him. "She may not even realize how much access she gave him," she added. Ethan didn't respond, because that didn't change the outcome. Intent didn't erase consequence. Footsteps echoed faintly down the corridor. Claire straightened slightly, shifting her posture back into something more neutral. "Executive team will start arriving in 20 minutes, she said. Board meeting moved to 11. Ethan checked his watch. "That gives us time." Claire hesitated again. "For what?" Ethan's gaze moved toward the main floor. Vanessa would be here soon. Moving through the same space, standing in the same stores, talking to the same people, completely unaware of what was already unfolding around her. "For me to see how far she's gone," he said. Claire didn't argue. Because she knew this wasn't just business, Ethan stepped past her, back into the main corridor. By the time the mall opened, everything looked normal again. Employees moving, stores unlocking, music filling the air. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes after opening. He saw her before she saw him. Same posture, same confidence, same controlled smile she used when she stepped into her role. Marcus walked beside her. Not behind, not at a distance, beside. That was new. Ethan slowed his pace just enough to observe without drawing attention. They stopped near one of the luxury storefronts. Vanessa gestured toward the interior, explaining something. Marcus nodded, but his focus wasn't on the store, it was on her. Too close again. Too familiar. Ethan kept walking. As he passed them, Vanessa's voice carried just enough for him to hear. "We'll finalize everything this week," she was saying. "Once I handle the last details." Marcus smiled. "I like the sound of that," he said. Vanessa laughed lightly. "I'm serious," she added. "I'm done waiting." Ethan didn't break stride, didn't look back. But the words stayed with him. Done waiting. For what? For him to change, or for something else to fall into place? He moved toward the maintenance corridor, pushing his cart with steady hands. A few employees nodded as he passed. One of them, an older technician named Luis, paused. "Morning, Ethan," he said. Then lower, "Everything good?" Ethan met his eyes. "Everything's clear," he replied. Luis held his gaze for a second longer than usual, then nodded once. "All right." Respect. Quiet. Unspoken. The kind Vanessa never noticed. Ethan continued on. Near the central atrium, a junior manager rushed past him, phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, I know," the man said, voice tense. "It just got flagged, I'm telling you. It's bigger than a routine review." Ethan didn't stop, but he heard enough. The ripple had started, small, contained, but moving. He reached the maintenance station and set his cart down carefully. Then he stepped aside, pulling out his phone. A new message from Claire. Audit trigger confirmed. Legal notified internally. Ethan read it once, then locked the screen. Across the atrium, Vanessa stood with Marcus again, unaware of the shift happening around her. Still confident, still in control, still believing she was the one making decisions. Ethan watched her for a moment, not with anger, not with regret, just clarity. Then his phone buzzed again. Different number. He answered without hesitation. "This is Ethan Hale," a calm voice responded. "Mr. Hale, this is Grant and Ellison. We've prepared the initial divorce filing documents. We'll need your final review before submission." Ethan glanced once more toward Vanessa. She was smiling. Marcus leaned closer, saying something that made her laugh. Ethan turned away. "I'll review them today," he said. "Understood," the voice replied. "And Mr. Hale, once we file, there's no reversing the timeline." Ethan didn't hesitate. "I'm aware." He ended the call. For a moment, he stood still. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his access badge, the one he used every day. Plain, unremarkable. He turned it over in his hand. Then, without thinking twice, he clipped it back into place and picked up his cart again. Because for a few more hours, he would still be the man everyone believed he was. The janitor, the nobody. The one Vanessa had already decided to leave. But upstairs, behind closed doors, a boardroom was filling. Documents were being prepared. Decisions were waiting, and for the first time, Ethan wasn't delaying them. He was walking straight toward them. As he pushed the cart forward, his phone vibrated one last time. A short message from Claire. "They're all here, waiting on you." Ethan didn't stop walking. He didn't slow down. He just changed direction, toward the elevators that didn't require a uniform to access, and as the doors opened, he stepped inside. Leaving the floor and the life Vanessa thought she understood behind him. Ethan stepped out of the elevator into a different world. The noise of the mall disappeared the moment the doors closed behind him. Up here, everything was quieter. Carpet instead of marble, frosted glass instead of open storefronts, conversations held behind doors instead of spilling into the air. This was the part of the building Vanessa had never seen and never asked about. Claire stood near the conference room entrance, already waiting. "They're inside," she said. Ethan nodded once. "Anyone missing?" "No," Claire replied, full board. "Legal is on standby." Ethan took a breath. Not deep. Just enough. Pushed the door open. Every conversation inside stopped. 6 people sat around the long table. Senior partners, financial officers, legal advisors. The kind of people Vanessa thought ran places like this. They all stood when he entered. Not dramatically, not for show, just automatically. "Mr. Hale," one of them said. Ethan walked in without breaking stride, his uniform still on, his presence unchanged. "Let's sit," he said. They did. Claire closed the door behind him. Ethan moved to the head of the table, not rushing, not claiming the space, just taking it like it had always been his. A folder sat in front of his seat, prepared, waiting. He opened it. Numbers, contracts, vendor chains. Everything Claire had flagged and more. "Start from the top," Ethan said. The CFO cleared his throat. "We've identified multiple irregularities in vendor allocations over the past 18 months, he began. At first, they appeared minor. Budget fluctuations, adjustments within acceptable thresholds. Ethan listened, not interrupting, not reacting. But in the last quarter, the man continued, the pattern changed. Larger contracts, more aggressive restructuring. And now he hesitated. "Now?" Ethan prompted. "Now it's systemic," he said. "If left unchecked, it compromises operational integrity." Ethan's fingers tapped lightly against the table once. "Name," he said. The CFO didn't hesitate, Marcus Reed. The room held still for a second. Not because they didn't know, but because saying it out loud made it real. Ethan leaned back slightly. "Exposure?" he asked. Legal spoke next. "Financially we're contained," she said. "For now. But if regulatory bodies catch wind before we act, it becomes a compliance issue." "Potential investigation," Ethan nodded. "And internal?" he asked. Claire answered this time. Access logs tie activity to a legitimate user, she said, which complicates things. Ethan looked at her. Say it. Claire didn't soften it. Vanessa Carter. The room went quiet again. No one asked who she was. They already knew. Not as his wife. As an employee. A mid-level manager. Someone who shouldn't have been anywhere near this level of access. Ethan closed the folder slowly. Clarify, he said. Claire stepped forward, tapping her tablet. Her credentials were used to route approvals. Multiple times, she explained, indirectly, likely through shared access points, but enough to establish involvement if this is audited externally. Ethan absorbed that. Every word, every implication. She authorize it? He asked. No, Claire said. Not intentionally. That mattered, but not enough. Ethan stood. Not abruptly, just decisively. Timeline, he said. The CFO spoke again. If we move today, we can freeze accounts, halt contracts, and initiate internal investigation before anything leaks, he said. If we wait, we don't wait. Ethan cut in. The room stilled, not because of the decision, because of how quickly he made it. Claire watched him closely. This will hit her, she said. Ethan met her gaze. I know, and once it does, there's no separating her from this, Claire added. Her position, her reputation, everything. Ethan didn't look away. She made her choices, he said quietly, not harsh, not emotional, just true. He turned back to thy table. Move forward, he said, full audit. Freeze anything tied to Reed. Prepare legal action. The legal advisor nodded immediately. We'll need your formal authorization, she said. Ethan reached for the pen in front of him, the one placed there before he even entered. Waiting. He didn't hesitate. He signed. Clean, precise, the kind of signature that carried weight beyond the paper it sat on. And just like that, everything shifted. Claire exhaled softly. It's done, she said. Ethan set the pen down. Not yet. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. A junior assistant knocked lightly on the door, stepping in just enough to speak. Mr. Hale, she said, there's an issue on the floor. A customer complaint escalated. They're asking for management. Ethan glanced at Claire, then at the table, then back at the assistant. Who's handling it? He asked. Vanessa Carter, the assistant replied. Of course. Ethan stood. I'll take it, he said. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. You don't need to, she said quietly. I know, he replied. That wasn't the point. He walked out before anyone could say more. The elevator ride down felt shorter this time. Or maybe he just wasn't waiting anymore. When the doors opened, the noise hit him again. Voices. Movement. Life. And right in the center of it, Vanessa, standing near the food court, arguing with a customer, Marcus beside her, trying to manage the situation, but not really helping. Ethan slowed his steps, not hiding, not announcing himself, just observing. Vanessa's voice was sharper now. You can't just demand compensation like that, she was saying. There are policies. I don't care about your policies, the customer snapped. I want to speak to someone who actually has authority. Marcus stepped forward. I'm handling this, he said smoothly. Vanessa didn't stop him. She let him take control. Ethan watched that. The shift, the choice. Then Marcus spoke again. We'll resolve this, he said. You have my word. The customer hesitated, then nodded, satisfied. Marcus turned back to Vanessa, a small smile on his face. See, he said quietly, that's how you handle it. Vanessa smiled back. Not defensive, not resistant, grateful. Ethan took one more step forward and stopped, because in that moment something became very clear. Vanessa wasn't just choosing Marcus, she was trusting him, giving him authority, inside a system he was already exploiting. Ethan reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone. A single message from Claire waited, accounts frozen. Legal moving, it's live. Ethan looked up, at Vanessa, at Marcus, at the entire scene playing out exactly the way it needed to. Then he typed one message back. Proceed with internal notice. He hit send. And across the floor, without realizing it, Vanessa smiled at the man who was about to lose everything, while standing inside the building that was about to take it from him. Vanessa didn't notice the shift right away. At first, everything looked the same flow of customers, the same background music, the same rhythm she had grown used to controlling. But something underneath it had changed. She felt it in the way two supervisors stopped talking when she approached, in the way a store manager checked her phone mid-conversation and suddenly excused herself. in the way a security guard she'd seen every day for years avoided eye contact for the first time. Vanessa frowned, brushing it off. "People get weird when something happens," she muttered under her breath. Marcus stood beside her, watching the floor with a different kind of attention. "What kind of something?" he asked. Vanessa shrugged. "Probably some internal thing," she said. "It happens. Doesn't concern us." Marcus didn't answer immediately. His gaze moved across the floor, more focused now, more alert. Like he was listening for something she couldn't hear. Vanessa didn't notice. She was too busy stepping into her next desk, moving toward the retail offices with the same confidence she had carried all morning. "Come on," she said. "I have to check something upstairs." Marcus followed. Not beside her this time. A half step behind. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. Vanessa tapped her foot lightly against the floor, checking her phone as they rose. Messages stacked up faster than she could read them. Team updates, store reports, and one email flagged urgent. Internal audit notice, she frowned. "What is that?" she murmured. Marcus leaned slightly closer. "Open it," he said. She did. The message was short, direct. A review of vendor contracts and internal approvals was being conducted immediately. All departments were required to cooperate. Any irregularities would be investigated. Vanessa blinked. "That's sudden," she said. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Yeah," he said. "It is." Vanessa glanced at him. "You look like you know something," she said lightly. "I don't," he replied quickly. "Too quickly. Just bad timing for an audit." Vanessa shrugged again, though something in her chest tightened slightly. "Relax," she said. "We're fine. It's probably routine." Marcus didn't respond. The elevator doors opened. They stepped out into the management level. Vanessa had been here before, but only the parts she needed. Offices, meeting rooms, places where decisions were discussed but never finalized. Today felt different, more people, more movement, and more silence when she passed. She walked toward her office, ignoring it. "Let me just check a few things," she said, pushing the door open. Marcus followed her inside, closing the door behind him. Vanessa set her bag down, pulling up her system. "I'll just confirm everything is clean," she said, fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. Marcus stood near the desk, watching her screen. Too closely. Vanessa didn't notice. She scrolled through her approvals, vendor logs, routine data. Everything looked normal, until it didn't. Her screen froze for a second, then refreshed. Access restricted. Vanessa frowned. "What?" She tried again. Same result, restricted. "That's weird," she said, clicking through another tab. That one opened, then closed. Locked. Vanessa straightened slightly. "Okay," she muttered. "That's not normal." Marcus stepped closer. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means IT is doing something," she said. "Or the audit already started." She clicked again. Nothing. Another system. Same result. Vanessa's fingers slowed, then stopped. A quiet knock came at the door. She turned. "Yeah?" The door opened. Claire Donovan stepped inside, calm, controlled, professional. Vanessa blinked, surprised. "Claire," she said. "What's going on?" "My access just..." Claire didn't look at her first. Her gaze went to Marcus, and held. Just long enough to make the air shift. Then she turned back to Vanessa. "Miss Carter," she said evenly. "We need to speak." Vanessa forced a small smile. "Sure. About what?" "Because my system just locked me out, and I have no idea why it's related," Claire said. Vanessa's smile faltered. Marcus shifted slightly beside her. "This is probably just a misunderstanding," he said, stepping forward. "If there's an issue, I can." Claire cut him off with a look. Not sharp, not raised, just final. "I'm not speaking to you," she said. The words landed harder than they sounded. Marcus froze. Vanessa glanced between them, confusion rising now. "Okay, what is happening?" she asked, her voice tightening. "Because this is starting to feel..." "Your access has been suspended," Claire said calmly. Effective immediately. Silence filled the room. Vanessa stared at her. "What?" "Pending internal review," Claire continued. "There are irregularities tied to your credentials involving vendor approvals." Vanessa shook her head instantly. "No, that's not possible. It's already under investigation," Claire said. Vanessa laughed, short and disbelieving. This has to be a mistake. I didn't approve anything outside my scope." Claire didn't respond, because she didn't need to. Vanessa turned to Marcus. "Tell her," she said. "Tell her this is wrong." Marcus didn't move, didn't speak. For the first time since she had known him, he looked uncertain. Marcus, she pressed. He swallowed. He didn't finish. And in that half-second of hesitation, something inside Vanessa shifted. Not fully, but enough. Claire stepped forward slightly. "Miss Carter," she said, still calm, "we're going to need you to come with me." Vanessa's heart started to pound. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You can't just—" "We can," Claire replied, "and we are." Vanessa looked at Marcus again. He didn't meet her eyes this time, didn't defend, step in. He stepped back, just slightly, but enough. Vanessa felt it. The distance, the silence, the absence, and for the first time she realized she might not be in control of this anymore. Claire waited, not rushing, not forcing, just waiting. Vanessa grabbed her bag slowly, her movements less certain now. "Fine," she said. "Let's clear this up." Claire nodded once, then turned toward the door. Vanessa followed. Marcus stayed where he was, alone. As the door closed behind them, he finally moved, not toward Vanessa, toward his phone. His hands shaking just enough to matter. He dialed quickly. It rang once, twice. "Pick up," he muttered. Then, under his breath, this wasn't supposed to happen. And down the hall, walking beside Claire. Vanessa still didn't understand one thing. The decision that had just stripped her access wasn't made by the company. It was made by the man she had already decided to leave. Vanessa followed Claire down the corridor, her heels clicking sharper than usual against the polished floor. At first, she held on to her composure. This was a misunderstanding, it had to be. Internal audits happened. Systems glitched, people overreacted. She had seen it before. But not like this, not with her access cut. Not with Claire Donovan walking beside her like this. Wasn't a conversation, but a process. "Can you at least explain what this is about?" Vanessa asked, her voice tighter now. Claire didn't slow. "I already did," she said. "Your credentials were used in vendor approvals currently under investigation." "I didn't approve anything outside my role," Vanessa insisted. "I didn't say you did." That answer landed wrong. Vanessa frowned. "What is that supposed to mean?" Claire stopped walking. They stood just outside a glass-walled conference room. Inside, a few senior staff members moved quietly, setting up documents, screens, files. Vanessa recognized none of them personally, but she knew their level, higher than hers. Claire turned to face her fully now. "It means your access was used," she said. "Whether you understand how or not is something we're going to determine." Vanessa's chest tightened. "That's not my problem," she said. "If someone used my credentials, that's an IT issue." Claire held her gaze. "No," she said calmly. "It becomes your problem when it passes through your name." Vanessa opened her mouth to respond, then stopped, because the tone had shifted. This wasn't internal confusion anymore. This was liability. Behind them, the elevator doors opened again. Footsteps approached. Vanessa turned slightly, expecting Marcus. It wasn't him. Two men in suits stepped out, both carrying folders, both scanning the hallway with practiced eyes. Legal. Claire didn't acknowledge them directly, but Vanessa saw the brief exchange of glances, and suddenly, the situation felt real. Too real. "This is insane," Vanessa said under her breath. "You're acting like I did something wrong." Claire didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the conference room door and opened it. "Come inside," she said. Vanessa hesitated for a second, then stepped in. The room felt colder than it should have. Not physically, structurally. Everything inside was precise, organized, prepared. A seat was already set at one side of the table, not at the head, not among the others, separated. Vanessa noticed that immediately. Her stomach dropped slightly. "What is this?" she asked. Claire gestured toward the chair. "Please sit." Vanessa didn't move. "I'm not sitting until someone tells me what's actually going on." Claire's expression didn't change. "Then stand," she said. "It doesn't alter the situation." That was the moment Vanessa felt it. Not confusion anymore, not irritation. Something else. Something closer to move to the chair and sat. She's legal teams entered behind her, taking positions along the opposite side of the table. Files opened. Pens clicked. No one smiled, no one reassured her. Vanessa's hands tightened slightly in her lap. "This is ridiculous," she said again, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. Claire stepped forward, placing a folder in front of her. "Review this," she said. Vanessa hesitated, then opened it. Pages of transactions, vendor names, dates, approvals. Her name appeared again and again, not in bold, not highlighted, just present. Enough to matter. Her breath caught. I didn't do this, she said immediately. Claire nodded once. That's what we're here to determine. Vanessa flipped through the pages faster now. This isn't right, she said. I never authorized these amounts. I never. Your credentials did, one of the legal advisors said. Vanessa looked up sharply. That's not the same thing, she snapped. No, the man agreed calmly. It isn't, but it's where responsibility begins. Vanessa's chest rose and fell unevenly. This is a mistake, she said again, softer now. It has to be. Claire watched her. Then help us understand it, she said. Vanessa swallowed. Her mind raced. System access. Late nights. Marcus asking questions. Marcus using her login once when she stepped away. Her stomach dropped. No, that wasn't. Her eyes flicked toward the door, as if he might walk in, as if he would explain. He didn't. Claire followed her glance. He won't be joining us, she said. Vanessa's gaze snapped back. What do you mean? Claire didn't answer directly. Let's stay focused, she said, but the damage was already done. Vanessa felt it now. The gap, the silence, the absence of the one person she thought would stand beside her in this. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the folder. You're making a mistake, she said again, but this time it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Across the table, one of the legal advisors leaned forward slightly. Ms. Carter, he said, this review determines whether this remains an internal matter or escalates further. It's in your best interest to be completely transparent. Transparent, the word echoed in her head. Vanessa looked down at the documents again, then back up at Claire. You're treating me like I did something criminal, she said. Claire's didn't soften. I'm treating this like it could become that, she replied. Silence filled the room again, heavy, unavoidable. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, her thoughts spiraling. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to move on, move up, not sit here. Questioned, cornered. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it instinctively. Marcus. Calling. Relief hit her instantly. She reached for it. Claire's hand moved first. Not grabbing, just stopping. Not now, she said. Vanessa stared at her. That's my call. And this is your situation, Claire replied. The phone kept buzzing, then stopped. Vanessa's hand slowly lowered. And for the first time since this started, she felt it clearly. Marcus wasn't helping. He wasn't here. And whatever this was, he might be part of it. Claire straightened slightly. We're going to continue, she said. Vanessa nodded faintly, not because she agreed, because she didn't know what else to do, and somewhere, deep under the confusion and the denial, a new thought started forming. Quiet. Unwanted. What if this wasn't a mistake? What if she had trusted the wrong person? Claire closed the folder gently. There's one more thing, she said. Vanessa looked up. What? Claire held her gaze for a second longer than necessary, then said, This investigation was authorized at the highest level. Vanessa frowned. What does that mean? Claire didn't answer right away, because she didn't need to. The implication was already there. Decisions like this didn't come from managers, or directors, or even most executives. They came from one place. Vanessa's grip tightened slightly on the edge of the table. Who authorized it? She asked. Claire didn't look away. That's not something you need to worry about right now. But Vanessa already was, because for the first time, she realized, there was someone above all of this, someone she had never considered, someone she had never asked about, and somewhere in the building, that person was already watching everything unfold. Ethan stood on the service level above the main floor, leaning lightly against the metal railing as he looked down through the glass panels. From up here, the mall looked quieter, controlled, contained. It was always like this from above. The noise softened. The chaos turned into movement patterns, predictable, measurable, manageable. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. He didn't check it immediately. Instead, he kept watching. Down below, people walked between stores. Employees moved in and out of stockrooms. Vanessa's section was visible from this angle, though she wasn't there anymore. She was upstairs, in that room. His phone buzzed again. This time, he pulled it out. Claire, he answered. Tell me, he said. She's in, Claire replied. She's denying everything. I expected that. A short pause. She looks shaken, Claire added. Ethan's gaze didn't shift. She should be. Another pause, longer this time. There's something else, Claire said. Marcus Reed hasn't responded to any calls. Legal flagged unusual transfers tied to his accounts this morning. Ethan's grip tightened slightly around the phone. How much? We don't have full confirmation yet, Claire said, but enough to suggest he's moving money. Fast, Ethan exhaled slowly, not panic. He's running, he said. It looks that way. Ethan's eyes moved across the mall floor again, unfocused now. That complicates things, Claire added. No, Ethan said quietly. It clarifies them. Claire didn't respond. Ethan turned slightly, walking away from the railing, deeper into the quiet service corridor. Keep Vanessa in the process, he said. No accusations, just facts. Let her talk. You think she'll slip? I think she already has, Ethan replied. Silence settled between them. Then Claire asked the question she had been holding back. Do you want to step in? Ethan stopped walking. For a second, the hallway felt too still, too final. No, he said, not yet. Understood, a call ended. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. His reflections stared back at him from a darkened glass panel on the wall. Gray uniform, name tag slightly worn, maintenance badge clipped to his chest. A version of him Vanessa had decided was all he would ever be. He studied that reflection for a moment, then turned away. Downstairs, the investigation continued. Vanessa sat in the same chair, her posture tighter now, her confidence stripped down to something fragile and defensive. Every answer she gave felt thinner, more uncertain. She had gone from denial to explanation, from explanation to hesitation. Claire noticed the shift. So did the legal team. You said Mr. Reed asked to review vendor reports? One of them asked. Vanessa nodded slowly. Yes. He said he was evaluating potential investments. And you gave him access? Not full access, she said quickly. Just temporized. Through your cash? Vanessa hesitated. Yes. The room didn't react loudly. It didn't need to. The silence was enough. Claire's voice stayed calm. Did you document that access? No, Vanessa admitted. Did you report it? No. Did you verify his authorization with senior management? Vanessa looked down at the table. No. Each answer narrowed the space around her. Not dramatically, just steadily. Like a door closing 1 inch at a time. I trusted him, she said finally. It came out softer than she intended, more exposed. Claire didn't interrupt. Why? She asked after a moment. Vanessa swallowed. Because she stopped herself. Because he was everything Ethan wasn't. That thought hit her hard. And suddenly it didn't feel as certain anymore. I thought he knew what he was doing, she finished. Across the table, one of the legal advisors made a note. That assumption may have compromised company securities, he said. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I didn't think it was a risk. That doesn't eliminate the risk. Vanessa looked up, frustration flaring again. So what happens now? She asked. Claire didn't hesitate. We continue the investigation. We trace the transactions. We determine intent. And me? Vanessa pressed. Claire met her eyes. You remain under review. The words landed heavier than anything else so far. Not fired, not cleared, suspended in between. Vanessa leaned back slightly, her thoughts spinning faster now. Marcus, his calls, his sudden silence, the way he had pushed her to finalize things with Ethan, the way he had encouraged her to move faster. Bigger, riskier. Her chest tightened. This isn't just on me, she said suddenly. No one responded immediately. She leaned forward, her voice sharper. He was involved. He asked for those reports. He told me it was standard. He said, we will evaluate his involvement, Claire said calmly. Vanessa stared at her. That's not enough. It's the process. Vanessa's hands curled slightly on the table. This is going to come back on me, she said. If you acted outside protocol. Yes, the legal advisor replied. The room went quiet again. Vanessa's breathing grew shallow. She had wanted control. She had wanted to move up, to prove she belonged at a higher level. Now she was sitting here, realizing she might lose everything she had built. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't reach for it this time. Claire noticed. Expecting someone? She asked. Vanessa shook her head in her chest, but the truth sat heavier in her chest. She had expected Marcus to walk in, to fix it, to stand beside her. He hadn't, and he wasn't going to. Claire closed the folder again, signaling the end of this phase. We'll pause here, she said. You'll be notified of next steps. Vanessa didn't move. Can I go? She asked quietly. For now, Claire said. Vanessa stood slowly. Her legs felt weaker than she expected. She walked toward the door. Each step reached out her. She stopped. turned back. "Claire," she said. Claire looked up. Vanessa hesitated, then asked the question that had been building in her mind since the beginning. "You said this was authorized at the highest level." "Yes," Vanessa swallowed. "Who is that?" Claire held her gaze for a moment, then said carefully, "The person who owns this place." Vanessa frowned. "There's a board," she said. "Investors. Layers. It's not one person." Claire didn't argue, but she didn't agree either. "It's simpler than you think," she said. Vanessa's confusion deepened. "Then why haven't I ever seen them?" she asked. Claire's expression shifted just slightly. Not amusement, not pity. Something closer to restraint. "Because they don't need to be seen," she said. Vanessa stared at her. The answer didn't satisfy her. It unsettled her. She turned and walked out of the room, her thoughts louder now, more chaotic. Somewhere in the building, there was a person making decisions above everyone else. Someone she had never questioned, someone she had never tried to understand, and for the first time, a strange, uncomfortable realization began to form. What if that person had been closer than she ever thought? Down the hallway, near a service exit, a maintenance cart sat parked against the wall. Empty, except for a folded gray jacket draped neatly over the handle, and inside the pocket of that jacket, a phone vibrated once, with a message from Claire. She's starting to connect the dots. The screen went dark again. Waiting. The conference room felt different now. Not tense, not charged. Just quiet. Vanessa stood near the glass wall, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the mall below. The same floor where she had once raised her voice, where she had called him a nobody, where she had believed she was walking away from something small. Now she knew exactly how wrong she had been. Behind her, the door opened. She didn't turn right away. She already knew it was him. Ethan walked in without rushing, closing the door softly behind him. He wasn't in the gray uniform anymore. A dark suit fit him cleanly, simply. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. But there was no mistaking it now. He belonged in this room. He had always belonged here. Vanessa turned slowly. For a second, she just looked at him. Really looked. Not the version she had reduced him to. Not the man she had dismissed, but the one she had never tried to understand. "I didn't know," she said quietly. Ethan nodded once. "I know." The words weren't sharp, they weren't forgiving either, they just existed. Vanessa took a small step forward. I thought I understood everything," she said. "Your job, your life, where you fit." Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "That was the problem," he said. Her breath caught slightly. "I never asked," she admitted. "I just assumed. You decided," Ethan corrected gently. The difference landed heavier than she expected. Vanessa swallowed. "I was wrong." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He walked a few steps into the room, stopping near the table where documents had been laid out earlier. The same table where decisions had shifted everything. "You weren't wrong about what you wanted," he said after a moment. "You wanted security, status, a certain kind of life." Vanessa nodded, her eyes stinging now. "Yes. You were wrong about what you thought I was," he added. Silence filled the space between them. Vanessa looked down. "I didn't think you were nothing," she said softly. Ethan didn't interrupt. "I just thought you were less." That honesty cost her something. It showed. Ethan let the words settle. Then he said, "That's the same thing." Vanessa closed her eyes for a brief second. When she opened them again, there was no defense left. "Is there anything left?" she asked. The question hung there. Not dramatic, just fragile. Ethan met her eyes. "No," he said. The answer came without hesitation, but not without weight. Vanessa nodded slowly. She didn't argue, didn't plead. For the first time, she understood something clearly. This wasn't about money. It never had been. "I thought you were hiding something from me," she said, her voice quieter now. "Like you were pretending, testing me." Ethan shook his head. "I wasn't testing you," he said. "I was living my life." Vanessa frowned slightly, confused. "I didn't want to be valued for something I didn't earn in that moment," he continued. "I wanted something real, something simple." He glanced down briefly, almost as if remembering. "I worked there because I wanted to, not because I had to." Vanessa let out a slow breath. "And I turned that into a reason to leave you." "You turned it into a reason to look down on me," Ethan said. She didn't deny it. There was nothing left to defend. Ethan stepped back slightly, creating space. "The divorce will move forward," he said. "The terms are already structured, fair, clean." Vanessa nodded. I read them, she said. I understand. No fight, no negotiation. Just acceptance. Ethan watched her for a moment. Then he added, the investigation is separate. Her expression tightened slightly. I know. Marcus won't be coming back, Ethan said. Vanessa let a bitter breath. I figured that out. The silence returned again, but it felt different now. Not unresolved. Just finished. Vanessa looked at him one last time. I really did love you, she said. Ethan didn't doubt that. I know, he replied. That was the hardest part. She had loved him. Just not enough to respect him. Vanessa nodded, as if confirming something to herself. Then she turned toward the door. Paused. I don't expect anything from you, she said. Not forgiveness. Not another chance. Ethan didn't answer. She didn't wait for one. She walked out. The door closed quietly behind her. Ethan stood alone in the room. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't reach for anything, didn't check his phone. He just stood there, letting the silence settle. Then he exhaled. Not heavy, not relieved, just steady. A chapter closing without noise. He walked to the window Vanessa had stood by earlier and looked down at the mall again. Same floor, same people, same movement. Nothing had changed out there, only the truth had caught up. His phone buzzed once. Claire. All set? She asked when he answered. Yes, Ethan said. A short pause. And you? She asked. Ethan looked out across the space he had built, managed, protected without needing to prove it to anyone. I'm fine, he said. And this time, it was true. They spoke briefly about next steps. Business. Structure. Forward. Movement. No mention of Vanessa. No need. When the call ended, Ethan slipped his phone back into his pocket. He didn't rush out. Didn't linger either. He simply turned and walked toward the door. The same man who had once held a mop in the middle of a crowded food court. The same man who had stood quietly while being called a nobody. Nothing about him had changed, except now no one could deny what had always been true. Not his position, not his worth, and not his dignity. As he stepped into the hallway, the noise of the mall returned faintly, distant but familiar, life moving forward, unaffected, unimpressed. Exactly the way he preferred it. He walked past a maintenance cart without stopping. Didn't need to pick it up anymore. Didn't need to prove anything by putting it down either. It had never defined him, just like everything else. And somewhere behind him, in a quiet office, a woman sat alone with the realization of what she had lost. Not just a man with power, but a man who had never needed it to matter. If you were in his place, would you have spoken up sooner? Or stayed silent until the truth spoke for you?